Tries to differentiate sometimes.
Welcome, everybody, to the Tuesday, July 25th Selectmen's meeting. I'll read the agenda. 7 o'clock, we'll have citizens input. 7:05, Animal Control Officer, Police Chief, approved vote, Animal Control Mutual Aid Agreement with Norfolk. 7:15, MPS LLC, we'll have public hearing. Discussion vote on New England Patriots 2017 season application. 7:25, Tough Mudder, authorization for town manager to execute agreement. We'll review Tough Mudder proposal and provide authorization to the town manager to execute agreement. 7:40, Selectmen's update. 7:50, town manager's update. 8 o'clock, assistant town manager's update, and then we have a bunch of action items. Chris, will you lead us in that?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Didn't put it behind me this time, so I couldn't find it.
Is there anybody here for citizens input?
Anybody? Anybody?
Hi, Debbie Giardino, 151 Main Street, Town Recreation Director. I'm here tonight to invite all of you and anyone in the viewing audience to an event that's going to take place on August 21st, which you may or may not be aware of. There is going to be an eclipse on the 21st. And the Boy Scouts of America, Troop 7, Tom Perry being the leader, in partnership with the Recreation Department, we're holding an eclipse viewing party. It's going to start at 12:30 at the Booth Playground, which will be a great place for viewing. It will end at 4. There is two ways of approaching this party. You could pay $15, and with that $15, you will receive a T-shirt. On the front of it says, "Where will you be on August 21st?" And on the back of it, it has a picture of the United States, of which there'll be a red dot on the on Massachusetts, preferably on Foxborough, indicating that you were present for the eclipse. You'll also receive glasses because, as we all know, you cannot view the sun on any day, particularly on an eclipse day. And if any of you are as old as I am, we used to make those boxes that you had to view from inside your house to watch the eclipse. It's a daytime eclipse. I did a little research. There has not been one in 38 years. So for some, it will be the first that they've ever seen. We will not have the benefit of having a total eclipse, but it's going to be the first contiguous eclipse, meaning that it's going to stretch from coast to coast. And in saying that we are not going to have a total eclipse, some states will be totally darkened, South Carolina being the last one before it approaches us. And I have a map or a diagram that shows how it's going to unfold as it approaches Foxborough. I don't know if you can see this, but this will be as it unfolds with the total eclipse in the middle, which, of course, we will not have the total eclipse, but we will have a significant portion of a partial eclipse. It's a great opportunity for the town. It's a great opportunity for the kids. It was the Boy Scouts' idea. They wanted to do just the Boy Scouts, but of course Recreation has to jump on everything, and we chose to join them and offer them the support and logistics of everything that Recreation can offer. Camp is closed that week, except for an ancillary camp that will be at Mill Street, so the Booth Playground is the most perfect place to hold it. We would like to invite the senior citizens to come down. We will have glasses for them. The veterans to come down. We will have glasses for them. There's going to be hot dogs. There will be music. There will be also, where did I put it? A teacher from the Ahern School, a science teacher, and forgive me, I had her name, who is coming down to do a fun and educational, Tara Tetralt, an Ahern School science teacher who has agreed to come down and give a fun yet educational component to the eclipse viewing party. I think Town Hall should close that day during that time, and everybody come down there for some educational viewing. Again,
Thanks for the little bit of pressure.
you can come down at various times.
Yes,
It's just, this is just a little plug because we do market all over the place, as many of you know, from Facebook to Twitter to Constant Contact. The Boy Scouts are doing it their way, and they're contacting their Boy Scouts. Anyone that wants to hear it, anyone that hears it through this way should contact the Recreation Department. And I certainly hope that families will join it. I don't know when the next eclipse will be. That will be the last unknown fact that I have. And even if you wanted to just come down and see the eclipse, the glasses will be available. I just think it's going to be a fun day. If we can rally the kids and the parents together, it could be a great event. And I thank you for your time and allowing me to put this plug in. I have some flyers for your table and for your table. And we have flyers also throughout the town. And of course, again, using all of our various marketing techniques and also the Boy Scouts. Again, this was a Boy Scout initiative, and they're really flying with it. We just offered to jump on the bandwagon and help promote it and bring our kids to it as well and get word out through all of the avenues that we have.
Great.
Right. Thanks, Deb.
All right, thank you.
So it's $15 and to see
$15
it?
if you wanted to do the whole thing, which is the glasses, the T-shirt, the
Oh,
hot
okay.
dogs. If you didn't want to do that, we're still going to have the glasses, which I think are the most important part and may be the most wanted part if people just wanted to come down and just view it, say, you know, senior citizens that might want to walk down, or maybe they'll bus them down, or veterans who just may, again, join up and come down. They will be available. The other package was developed by the Boy Scouts. It's a Boy Scout venture, so they developed that package. But once we were jumped on, they were able to lower the price, which was great for everybody. So congratulations to Tom Perry and his troops. I wish them the best of luck. And if you can be there, we'll see you there. Unless it's dark, then I won't see you, except with my special glasses.
If it rains, is there a rain date for this? You got to say a joke.
I had to think about it for a minute.
That's a sad thing. I know you did.
I'm kidding. No, you'll have to go. Maybe we'll get a tent, but I think the moon waits for no man.
There you go.
The rain
Thank
date's
you.
tomorrow, next day. Next day.
It's rained enough this summer.
Yeah, that's right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Deb.
Actually, remember this.
Being a little past 7:05. Dave? Oh, sorry.
As a Troop 7 Eagle Scout, I wholly support you supporting them. Alan Erickson, representing 91 North Street. I just want a point of order clarification. Will you be opening the floor after the agenda item, specifically with respect to the Tough Mudder conversation?
We'll open up for questions.
For public comment?
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. Bill, are you going to do the approve vote animal control mutual aid
Yes,
agreement?
so I'll present it, yes.
Or do you want to wait?
I can present it. It shouldn't take more than 5 minutes. It's really, it should be brief. The proposed agreement that you have before you tonight, which is which is a mutual aid agreement for ACOs for, we have a situation right now where we have one animal control officer and other communities have single animal control officers, and sometimes there are situations where they need to cover for each other. This is one step towards formalization of that. We've always had a good working relationship with Norfolk, and this is an opportunity to try and formalize that agreement. So this is a standard agreement that we have that's been used throughout the state, and it's something that we're trying to formalize with the town of Norfolk. This is something that Chief Baker's been working on with our ACO. So I recommend that the chairman sign it, of course with the approval of the board. And this will actually help us in providing coverages for times when there are gaps of coverage throughout the year.
Do we have agreements with other towns?
We don't, but this is the first one we're actually going to formalize. We're going to actually try to, it's been informal up to now, but we think we should start formalizing that because there's issues about liability and things of that nature.
So eventually Mansfield?
Mansfield, yeah. This is another step towards regionalization of this type of matter.
There's no cost to this, it's just sharing existing resources.
Right, so basically what happens is that we pay for the cost of the person going over there, but there's likewise, they pay for somebody to come over here as well. So it just works out, it's more formalized that way.
No questions?
Pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Want a motion?
Move to approve the animal control mutual aid agreement with Norfolk.
Second.
Motion made, second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. A little bit ahead of schedule.
Save the chief a little bit of discussion, so.
All set.
Gonna do a couple action items.
Sure. Move to approve 42 election workers with terms expiring 9/1/18.
Second.
Motion made, second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Right. Move to approve a block party for 12 Fales Place on 7/29/17 from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m.
Second.
Motion made, second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Move to approve a National Night Out event for the Foxborough JCs on 8/1/17 from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m.
Second.
Motion made, second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Move to approve the Fall Vendor Fair for the Foxborough JCs on the Town Common on 10/21/17 with a rain date of 10/22/17 from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m.
Second.
Motion made. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Move to approve a one-day wine and malt beverage liquor license for the Foxborough Realty Associates for a Saturday 7/30/17 for their International Champions Cup, for the International Champions Cup.
Second.
Motion made, second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Move to approve extending closing hours for Jake and Joe's for Saturday, 8/26/17 to 2 a.m. for the McGregor-Mayweather fight.
Second.
Under discussion, I noticed on the letter, they're not extending the food service, and they're not extending the liquor, and they are hiring a detail officer. So this is one, there's probably gonna be more restaurants coming to do the
They
same
may
thing.
very well be, yeah.
Does the board have a preference on any of the three, the officer, so we can give some guidance to the next 4 or 5 that might come in?
Have we ever extended an actual liquor license before?
Yeah, New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, Chief, any comments on extended hours with a detail officer? Is that something that we should require, or?
Just for this particular event?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think certainly we can handle it with the detail option.
But there might be more restaurants applying.
Because of a precedent, you think with
Yeah.
Well, no, only because it's the type of event that it is. It's a special fight. It's actually gained pretty much worldwide attention, so it's going to be a unique event in many ways.
Yeah. I just envision a lot of the bars and restaurants saying, can we open till 2? And it's the 26th, so it's probably one more meeting. We're probably going to get a bunch of them.
Yeah.
So rather than be surprised at the next one if we had some dialogue.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we have a problem extending the opening hours, but I don't think we want to extend
Service
the
hours.
service hours.
Mm.
I think that could be problematic, especially if, you do it for one, you got to do it for everyone.
You're asking on a case-by-case basis. I would understand the board exercising that authority, but if you wanted my frank opinion, I think holding the line on the closing time is clearly in our best interest and the best interest of public safety would be my basic opinion.
So you're saying
Not extending it.
not extending the closing hours?
Correct.
Quick question, does anybody know what hours the pay-per-view is? I mean, not a boxing fan, so I don't know when it starts and when it's scheduled to end.
It actually starts, I think, I'm guessing on this only because I've seen these type of things happen before. It's probably late because it's located in another part of the world. And so as a result, it'll probably start later, probably around 9 o'clock, 8 or 9 o'clock, and there'll be there'll be fights leading up to it. And this is the number one fight. But it doesn't start probably till 1 o'clock, 12:30, 1 o'clock.
Oh, you don't even think it'll start till then?
No, because that's why they're extending it till 2, maybe midnight. Maybe it's a midnight
You
start.
expecting a knockout?
It could be. I've seen those happen before. I mean, we've seen that happen in the first, second round. It's happened, but
So the issue you may have is the fight's nearing an end, it's closing time. People
Yeah.
aren't going to leave. They're not going
Right.
to shut the TV off, and you may
yeah.
have issues that way.
Oops, sorry. I'm trying to look it up.
You watching the fights?
I'm looking it up.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it was going to have music.
I think we have an issue here, because if we okay Jake and Joe's, and, next thing you know, we have, like Jim said, half a dozen people coming looking to do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we have enough, and if we're gonna require a detail officer, I don't know if we have enough officers to
Right.
Well, what-
cover.
What's the difference in this and New Year's Eve? You have as many, maybe not details at each place, but I think more
Yeah.
people probably
That's a good point.
extend for New Year's Eve. And the food, it says in the letter, they're requesting that the food service and the liquor service would end the normal time. So they're not extending the food or the liquor service. They're just extending,
Just in case the fight goes longer.
right.
Chief, the detail is 4-hour minimum,
Correct.
so they're gonna have to pay for a detail for 4 hours, even if it's a 1-minute fight.
Which location are you talking about?
This is Jake and
Jake
Joe's.
Jake and Joe's right now. Jake and Joe's?
Oh, yeah.
On the Foxborough Mansfield line.
The times haven't been announced, but it will certainly be a late night or very early start. So,
Midnight or early
Yeah.
start, so what happens if the fight's still going on at 2 o'clock?
it's in Vegas.
No, so I thought it
it's
was
3 hours.
actually another country. It's actually going to be in
Oh,
Vegas.
wait a minute, maybe it's in the UK, or whatever it is. They haven't announced it yet on this website.
Yeah, so if it's a late night start in Vegas, it's 3 hours difference here.
Right.
So
Well, midnight.
I don't necessarily have a problem. It's a lot of money for them to have this
Yep.
cable hookup. They're going to have the show, to shut it off halfway through is going to be a disaster.
Yeah.
But
Then you need
if
the
everyone's,
detail.
if we're going to require a detail and there's a bunch of restaurants, you're right, it's similar to New Year's Eve.
Mm.
Yeah.
How about we do this, we get changing it to 2 more weeks. I guess it depends on when the fight's going to start. I don't know when they're going to announce the time.
Yeah, there's nothing. They haven't given it to us yet.
What is it?
Did I hear you say at another meeting, if that's the case, I'm happy to go down and meet with the licensee and see what they know about the start time and what they have in mind, and come back and present what I find to the board, if that's helpful.
Well, I don't think the extended time's an issue. I think the details is an issue. The detail officer.
Well, if they're willing to, if they're saying that they're gonna hire
No,
a,
I understand, but are we gonna require all of them to?
Well, you have detail officers already stationed at Patriot Place, right? Which would have been Friday nights anyways.
So that wouldn't,
They just may change how late are they there till, Chief?
They're there till 1 in the morning. We've changed that approach, as you know. I'm not a big fan of having the officers in the bars. So we've taken the community policing approach to this up there, and they're deployed in the bar and retail area generally as a deterrence, preventive measure, and respond to calls for service in the bars upon the request of the bar, as opposed to the way it's been done historically in most places, which is really people actually inside a particular bar.
So could we, if, let's say, we get 3 or 4 requests from Patriots Place to extend it, could we extend that to 2 o'clock if need be?
Sure, yeah, we always work adjust the hours, you know, those are not set in stone, so we could start an hour later and finish an hour later, for example.
All right.
And they
So
certainly have
the
enough-
question is, if the fight goes till 2, that means you're still gonna need somebody there till 3.
My experience with pay-per-view and boxing matches is that they don't usually start. You know, midnight's late, and I think it's a reasonable guess that fight's not gonna last long. So, I mean, we can find that out. I think it'd be easy enough to find out what the televised time's gonna be, how many pre-fights they have on the card and all that kind of stuff, and come up with a rough estimate of the start time and how it might impact the businesses. But I can't recall a pay-per-view fight going until 2 o'clock in the morning personally. Others did.
They seem to go up to about midnight, but never beyond that.
And especially these two, because they generally don't like each other.
Yeah.
So they're out to kill one another, so.
Yeah.
There's
So-
a press conference on Thursday. Looks like they'll announce the details then. And
So-
it
If we're
costs
all fine
$99.
with them extending the hours and they're willing to pay for the detail, I say that's our precedent. If anybody else wants to, that's fine. Same rules apply. Normal food and liquor ends at the normal time and you have to pay for a detail.
Is there any thought on the board's behalf to wait this out for 2 more weeks, so we have more information? Mark?
I have no problem waiting 2 more weeks.
Because they'll still give them, the fight is until 26th of August.
Yeah, that'll still give them
When's
3
our-
weeks.
Still gives them a couple more weeks.
Yeah. I mean, it gives them comfort we can approve this and then contingent upon working with the police department. You know, we'll figure out that part later.
Yeah.
But to let them know that 2 o'clock,
Yeah, because they're gonna
It's
wanna
fine.
market this and publicize it as
Yeah,
much
fair
as they
enough.
possibly can, so, I mean, if we're all comfortable with allowing them to do it and having the detail, that just has to be the precedent for any other establishment coming forward.
yeah, with the police
Yeah,
detail to be
yeah.
determined.
Is this is kind of an unusual request, so do you think Fox Cares could send out a reminder to all the people, Fox Care members, if they are even interested in this, that we have like one more meeting before to get an approval?
Mm.
Yep,
Yeah,
could do that.
because you don't want to have people come at the last minute.
Yep.
Okay, motion was made, it was seconded, lengthy discussion. All those in favor?
Okay.
Let's go back to 715 MPS LLC.
The Board of Selectmen, acting as the local licensing authority pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 140, Section 181, and Section 183A, and Chapter 136, Section 4, Code of the Town of Foxborough, Chapter 229, and also Stadium Rules and Regulations, will conduct a public hearing on Tuesday, July 25th, 2017, beginning at 7:15 PM in the Foxborough High School Media Center, 120 South Street, to review the application submitted by New England Patriots LLC for the 2017 New England Patriots regular season home games, including preseason and potential home playoff games. These events are proposed for Gillette Stadium. Application for this event is on file at the Office of Selectmen. All interested parties are welcome to attend.
Welcome.
Thank you. Jesse Enos with Gillette Stadium.
And Randy Briggs, Stadium Advisory Committee.
Here before you tonight to request the 2017 New England Patriots season license. As with previous years, we're asking right now for 2 preseason games, 8 regular season games, and hopefully 2 home playoff games, as well as our open training camp sessions, which we host at the stadium on our practice field. We will continue to request a 2-hour gate time and a 4-hour lot time, specifically for our home opener, which is on Thursday, the 7th. We're asking for a 3:30 lot time instead of a 4 o'clock lot time, just because that home opener. We have the banner reveal. We'll have some in-stadium fanfare, and we'll be encouraging fans to come down to the stadium as soon as possible. And because it's also a weeknight and there'll be a certain level of commuter traffic, we ask for the additional 30 minutes just to help get people, process cars, get them off of a Route 1 and into our stadium. So we are incredibly fortunate to be planning another kickoff celebration that is nationally televised. It's a huge game for us. It truly is. It's the start of the NFL season. The entire league has their eyes on us, so we've got some exciting stuff planned. I mean, as you guys know, we like a good celebration. So we're going to have a really great program put together for our fans in the stadium. And then the national broadcast will pick up for about 2.5 minutes. We'll have our championship moment. We will reveal our 5th banner, and then the game will kick off. So it'll be an exciting day. We've got a lot of really cool stuff planned. You'll notice that there's some construction going on in our south end zone where we've got a whole new display system in place this season, which will be great. The balance of the season, you'll see a lot of the same initiatives with a new twist. We're going to continue to have a cancer awareness month. We will continue to do a salute to service. As far as the venue itself, we have done a lot of changes and upgrades in the building, as you guys know, at field level and in the 100 level and the club level. So in this off season, we really focused on the 300 level. It was about time that we did some upgrades to that space. And so in the off season, we did two big projects that we're unveiling that will actually, hopefully, will have sort of a soft opening for at the Coldplay concert on August 4th, but will certainly be up and running for the preseason. And those two projects are our JetBlue landings. So there's 4 landings right now on the 300 level, 1 in each corner. The space was otherwise just open, and now we have these landings which are going to provide sort of a temporary shelter for our guests, a place for them to congregate, to rest their drinks, to meet up with friends who might be in other sections, and also have some protection from the weather. They'll be climate controlled. They will have a covered roof. So it'll give our fans in the 300 level, which anybody who's ever been up there knows how incredibly brutal it can be, especially with wind. So it'll be a nice space for in each corner for fans to congregate. And then we have an additional space called Union Point, which we feel like is going to really be the next sort of landmark installation in the venue, also in the 300 level in the south end zone. And then that space is, again, structured to provide some level of protection from the elements, but still provide viewing from all angles and give our fans a place to get together with friends and fans who just aren't in their section. And additionally, in the 300 level, behind the last row of seats in that first tier of the 300 level, we have added a drink depth railing. So whereas when the stadium opened and we've just had this a red line painted, which is where people know that they can't step any closer to the back seats. Now there's actually a structure in place, and it gives fans an opportunity to, again, congregate, watch the game, talk to friends, but also it provides a layer of protection for that last row of seating who otherwise would have fans kind of close up against their back. And now they've got a actual line and a structure that's keeping them in place. So with those additions, we're looking forward to another exciting and hopefully equally as successful season.
Okay. Open up to questions from the board.
The one issue that's been going year after year now, the Optimum Lounge seating mitigation discussion, is there an update on that?
Yeah, I'm actually going to hopefully, I'm trying to update the board to get your next meeting, but have to be an executive session for that,
Okay.
so I wouldn't get to that tonight. But I will tell you that we've had some really positive conversations about that, and there was a temporary resolution of that last year, but we're looking to try and come up with a more permanent resolution. And so I'm going to try and update you at the next meeting for that.
Okay, so it's been in the discussion circles?
Oh, absolutely,
Okay.
yeah. In fact, the last few meetings have been very positive about it, so.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? No? Being it is a public hearing, is anybody in the audience that has any questions or comments or concerns? Seeing none, motion to close public hearing?
Move to close the public meeting.
Advisory.
The Stadium Advisory Committee?
Do you have anything to add?
Anything to add?
Yeah, I have nothing to add. Jess does such a great, thorough job, and her review, there's really nothing to add. And of course, we've outlined everything in the memo based on our meeting and our recommendation for approval.
You provide personal protection to Jess, right?
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely.
All right, so I second Doc's closing of the public hearing.
Motion made, second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Move to approve the application submitted by the New England Patriots LLC for approval to their 2017 season.
Second.
Motion made, second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. 7:30. Tough Mudder, authorization for town manager to execute agreement. Bill, you wanna update us on this?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So members of the board, this is an issue that's been ongoing for several weeks now, and it's required information from both the, and approvals from two other boards in town prior to reaching you, primarily because of the venue that is being explored and considered here is actually on part of it's on conservation land, and the other part is on recreation land. So far, up to this point, we've received support from both boards. Recreation has voted by a margin of 7-0 to support this approach, this Tough Mudder event, and the Conservation Commission voted last night 4-2 with conditions to support the event as well. The conditions were specifically described in minutes last night, and I'll outline them for the board tonight. I actually printed them out today, so you could actually, so I could read them into the record tonight. Give me 1 second here. Okay. One second here. I've got a few documents here, so I want to make sure I get the right one. Essentially, I'll try and summarize some of them for you. But the commission voted to approve the license, the use of the land, with the conditions that they had to. It was only for 1 year approval. That they would come back, that the commission would have final say over the actual venue, that actual course, and they were going to be able to walk the course with the Conservation Commission. They also require that a botanist or a person with expertise in land and environmental conditions would actually be with the board when they did their walk, and also that person would be available to the board. Conservation Commission when the race was the event was finished, so they can actually evaluate the restoration plans that would be taken afterwards. So it looks as though I didn't actually take the right document, so I apologize for that. But having said that, what they there were a couple others as well too. I think, Bob, did I miss any? You have, okay.
If you like, I can read the...
Yeah, that'd be great, if you could. Sorry, I apologize. I thought I took the wrong document. I
I
apologize.
said it wasn't going to be discussion. And I'll read them from the... Oops, I will. Where did it go? Okay. A motion to allow Tough Mudder organization to use the Lane property for their 2018 event with the following conditions. The Conservation Commission gets the final say on the trail layout. There will be no spectators allowed on the Lane property. The Conservation Commission gets the final say on the obstacles to be placed on the Lane property. At least one Conservation Commission member to be part of the group that reviews any Tough Mudder proposals for the town of Foxborough. The trail through the Lane property shall not exceed 3 miles. A wetland environmentalist/wildlife scientist to be hired to aid the Conservation Commission in review of the course layout, construction, and restoration of the Lane property, and no waiver of any state or local wetland filings will be granted. The Conservation Commission reserves the right to revisit these conditions after the 2018 event. And that motion passed 4-2.
So that discussion occurred last night. It was about a 2-hour discussion. Kay Conley is here from Town Council because she actually reviewed the actual agreement that's before you tonight. We spent quite a bit of time answering questions from the commission, as well as responding to comments from the public. I will state that the comments from the public were only from the Lane family members. There was not any general public concerns raised from anybody, if anyone from the general public itself. It was strictly from Lane family members. So, and since that point, I've not heard from anyone else otherwise with respect to this issue. So I wanted to, I do want to say that the event is something that is unique to Massachusetts. It'll be the first one of its kind in Massachusetts, though it is something that's occurred actually across the world. And it's one of the most challenging courses that it's ever been. They bill themselves being one of the toughest course known to man, toughest course on the planet. And actually, a lot of people, it's a way of life for the people that actually participate in it. It will actually bring about 8,000 to 10,000 participants to the community over the course of a couple days. And it will be held over a 10 to 11 mile course throughout the town using the venues. And it's actually, there's a map of the locations in the actual agreement that I forwarded to the board as well.
Did we get, I didn't see a map.
It's one at the very, it's at the very end. There's a map of it.
Page 13.
Yeah, it's on the very end of it, yeah. So, the other thing that I wanted to do, and it was unfortunate because there was a statement made last night at the commission meeting that there was efforts made to try and have Tough Mudder provide the information to the Conservation Commission on events they've held in other areas. Unfortunately, that information never got forwarded to the board, but they did respond actually, and I got the copies of the emails that were sent out, and there was 3 or 4 responses that were sent to the Conservation Commission on that. Unfortunately, I just didn't receive them. So, but I will say that one of them was from Mount Snow, which is most recently held that event. Probably it was in June, I believe. I think, and one of our board members actually participated in that event. But I will say that I spoke to the coordinator for that event. He said they were the number 4 venue identified by Tough Mudder when it first started. That was about 5 years ago, by 2013. They've held the event there 9 different occasions. Now they've had it there for 8 years, but they actually had 2 events in one summer because of the popularity of it. Mount Snow, if anyone's familiar with Mount Snow, the top of the mountain is actually U.S. Forest Service land, Forest Service protected land. The bottom of the part is actually owned by Mount Snow. And so the requirement to participate on that property required that it had to go through the federal guidelines for participation, which they did 8 years ago. It was a very strenuous process, which they ultimately prevailed upon. They then held the event there and were invited back for 8 straight years, and have since have had a tremendous track record of working in very sensitive areas, which is another reason why it was important for us to consider that as part of the overall approval here in the town. We are dealing with, to my knowledge and understanding, I don't believe they've ever actually actually held it on a conservation parcel in the past, but they've certainly held it on federally and state protected and water district highly sensitive areas, and have had a track record that has been impeccable in terms of restoring the property to where it was prior to when the events were actually held. So if at any time during the course of the discussion there was a concern that we would somehow cause any kind of permanent damage to the property, that would certainly be something that I would not bring forward for the board's consideration. I've yet to see that. In fact, in Googling the property, Googling this event, I could not find anybody that could provide any kind of permanent sort of ecological or environmental type of issues that occurred to the property where these events were held. It's important that the event be brought to Foxborough for a couple of reasons. One is the fact that it's, for notoriety purposes, it is the first of its kind that will be held between Boston and Providence on a regional basis, so that in and of itself is unique. Second of which is that from a regional economy perspective, it is very significant because it provides support for the local restaurants, local hotels, the gas that gets put in the cars, and all the additional items that people buy while being and participating in these events. It's a ripple effect that occurs, and also the areas where they have participated in these races have also been identified as areas that have actually been improved after the race has been held. So there are areas that we have identified actually in the conservation areas that we'd like to see improved. And with participation in this event, we can actually gear ourselves towards having some of those areas addressed. So it is not a multi-year event as has been discussed. However, it is preferred to have it over a 5-year period. That's usually the length of time that is done. However, in this case, and the way it usually starts out is that it's reviewed after the first year. If it's successful for Tough Mudder, then they will ask to come back. If the community itself is unhappy with the way it was treated in terms of how the event occurred, then the community has the right to say, no, we don't want you back. So this is the way this event occurs. I know that some people have actually participated in these events. I have not personally not. I have not had any affiliation with this group before whatsoever. I know that Chief Baker is here tonight, and he's actually participated in several of the events, as well as been in part of worked in a community up in Maine where they actually hosted a couple of these events and during the course of his career, and can speak to this more specifically about why it is a good thing to occur. So I can turn it over to the chief if the board wishes to hear from him.
Yeah, please.
So I apologize for being tardy to the 7:05 event. Had a call at the Rock Hill Cemetery, and I can't drive by a call without backing my officers up, so that took precedent. So I guess what I have to offer is, in my former life, I brought the Tough Mudder to the city of Westbrook, Maine, and as I've said publicly many times now, they were spectacular partners for our community. They took very good care of the combined parcels of land that we put together to accommodate this race, which included a private golf course, about 80 acres of municipal forest and municipal recreation land, a large parcel of land owned by the Portland Water District that was protected water district land. And they took outstanding care of the land. They made sure that the participants were channeled appropriately if there were any sensitive wetlands or sensitive species in any of those parcels of land, and they delivered 100% on their promises to leave the land better than they found it in many cases. I also, because it ended up being a 5-year option agreement, my experience is that in order to be responsive to their customers, ours went 2 years out of the 5. And then the customer feedback was, that was great, but we'd like to try something else, and they try and locate another venue. So I think the 1-year option agreement is a good way to go. But I also went to see other venues that they hosted in New York and New Jersey, and everywhere I went and everything I observed told me that they were very responsible stewards of the land, took good care of things, and delivered on the promises that they made in the agreements that they executed with both the municipality and the private landowners. So for what it's worth, that's my personal experience with this organization and this race.
Any questions for the chief?
No, Chief, no.
Oh, excuse me, Chief. Up in the Westbrook, in your town of Westbrook, the area that was used for the obstacle courses, what was it originally? Was it just fields, or was it just?
It was very similar, actually. It was a combination of the municipal campus that we did it on had former school property that served as the municipal center, a lot of the outdoor pool, indoor pool, several athletic fields. That was adjacent to the forest, which had some trails, but we were interested in expanding those trails. That was adjacent to the water district land, which was power line,
hills, some forests, some open fields, and that was adjacent to the private golf course, and so each of those pieces presented slightly different geography of interest to the participants and slightly different opportunities in terms of erecting a temporary structure in one part, digging mud pits in another part, erecting, more modest, less environmentally impactful obstacles like the hay bale tunnels that people navigate through. So it was a pretty diverse campus with 3 or 4 different public and private parcels, all of which had different characteristics.
But would it be considered, those areas would be considered like active recreation as opposed to passive recreation?
No, I mean, I guess, again, that was a definitional discussion that happened last night, what active and passive means. I don't know if one would call golf active or passive, for example. But most of it, I would say, was more passive than active. The large parcel owned by the Portland Water District, for example, had never been recreated on before. So it had not been recreated on at all, was used for this purpose, and survived very nicely. The municipal campus with athletic fields and indoor and outdoor pools, again, had youth soccer and those kinds of things on it. The forest was certainly passive recreation. Our forest wasn't used for, ATVs or motorcycles or even dirt bikes. It was mostly walking and birding and those kinds of things. So depending on what your definition was, I would say it ran from active, if we can call golf active, to passive on the other 3 parcels.
And how much restoration was necessary for the areas affected by the courses?
Really the biggest piece of restoration was in the areas where they dug the mud pits. And so they did actual excavation, and with the excavated materials built the humps of mud that people navigate over. And so those areas were obviously substantially disturbed with heavy machinery and required the largest amount of restoration. The golf course, for example, some of which had the big wooden walls that people have to scale with teammates. Frankly, 3 days later, looked like it had never been run on. And those were, typical golf fairways. In the Portland Water District land, with all the hills, that was the hilly part of the course. Some of the valleys at the base of the hills accumulated water, natural rainwater before the event, and so the runners going through there churned that up and created some muddy wetlands that lasted longer than they might have had they not been run through. But again, they dealt with that and restored that, and it dried out eventually. So everything, as I say, was either restored to its original condition or improved upon, and some of the improvement activity occurred on the golf course mostly, where in exchange for hosting the event, the golf course owner got some work done by the machines that were there to do the restorations of the pits. So again, it was a very positive experience. We put together a pretty elaborate group of private and public landowners and executed land use agreements with each of them, and debriefed the event naturally with all the municipal department heads and private landowners in the wake of both events, and there just were there was no negative feedback at all.
Was it early spring, middle of the summer, late summer? When did you have it?
We actually did 2 Tough Mudders and something called a Mudderella, which is an all-women's race, and I think the women's race was late spring, as I recall, and both of the Tough Mudders were either late summer or early fall.
And on this map that we have, the proposed scene, it looks like in recreation department, the recreation area, it's a ball field, and it looks like they might be those like soccer fields or something
Yeah,
like that.
let me explain that, because I don't want anybody to be misled about that. So the areas, those just to identify the areas that are, the definition of the areas that are gonna be where the trails are gonna go. But one thing that's really important for everybody to know here is that the actual The actual event itself will not actually traverse any of the ball fields. I mean, that was one of the requirements of the recreation departments, that they would stay away from the ball fields. So, and they would not interfere with their ongoing programs throughout the summer. So that was another important piece that the Recreation Commission had requested.
Okay.
Bill, could you, like, generally describe the route that this mud is going to take? You know,
Sure.
not total specifics, obviously, because we don't know them yet. Where it starts, where it goes through, where it continues through, and where it ends?
Sure. Well, let me just get to the actual map itself here. Actually, it's on the wrong topic.
Doc, I can give you, a general answer, which Bill can elaborate on, but as I understand it, there's kind of a three-part campus here. So it's Gillette Stadium is the beginning and the end. And in the beginning and the end of all of the Tough Mudders, they have something called a Mudder Village, where they do mini Mudder courses for children of participants and spectators, and they have, the places to shower off from the mud and to buy T-shirts and, those kinds of things. They have the stalls where they kick off 400 or 500 people at a time in waves. And so the three-part campus would have them leave Gillette and traverse the Lane property, the recreation land, Payson area, and then finish back at Gillette. And they do kind of circuitous loops, switchbacks, to be able to get the 10 or 11 mile course in, and they lay out the 20-plus obstacles throughout those 10 miles of switchbacks.
And so they're going to be traversing North Street quite a
Yeah, there are a
bit.
couple places where it traverses North Street, and Payson Road for that matter. So there were two locations that were pointed out to me today by the sponsor of the program.
So are we closing North Street and Payson Road?
I don't know if we need to close it. I don't think that's required. I think there just has to be, obviously, there has to be a crossing person there to make sure they get through. So I like it no different than the PMAS Challenge, where they don't close streets, but they allow people to cross.
What do you anticipate for the spacing of the athletes? I mean, you're gonna have so many thousands of people start at once. I don't know if it's gonna be you might know better, but is it a stage start? I know
It's a very disciplined process, and interestingly, I forget who said it last night or who asked about it last night, but somebody asked a question about, the town this size being able to host this many people. And interestingly, my hope was that the economic impact to some of the downtown businesses, like an ice cream shop, for example, was going to be better than it was, but they're athletes, and so they weren't consuming a lot of hot fudge sundaes, for example. So some of the businesses said, is it over? Did it even happen? Because they're very disciplined. They issue their start times, and you get assigned a group to go off with. And I think the number is usually someplace between 300 and 500 in each wave. And they spread those waves out over the course of a 7-hour day of starts. And then, of course, the day is slightly longer than that because of the time it takes people to finish it. But we parked 3,500 vehicles or whatever it was on farm fields adjacent to the prison, and people did exactly as they were told. They showed up in waves to park, went and participated. Most of them are serious athletes that do this as a hobby, and they left when they finished the course, went back to their cars and drove away, and another 500 come. So it was, from a traffic management point of view and a public safety point of view, the process, by virtue of the way they sell the tickets and issue you a start time, was very orderly.
Yeah, the reason for the question is, the size of the obstacles. Like, are they gonna build a mud pit for, 500 people running through it at the same time? So it's.
They generally do, and the challenge that they face, which is important for the course designers, is they don't want to set the course up in a way where the obstacles that create backups are too close together. Because there's some of them, like the wall, which you have to traverse with a team, for example. Most teams take a long time to get over that obstacle. And so you don't want to have that one back to back with another one that requires a long time to get over, or you start to have people backing up on the course. So the course designers have that all figured out from experience and try and space those things out. But again, are willing to make accommodations, as was discussed last night, so that they may have 3 of the more environmentally simple obstacles together on the lane property, which they might not want to do normally. They might not want to have 3 easy obstacles together, but they've offered to do that to be deferential to everybody involved.
In this agreement, where it mentions venue, are they talking Gillette Stadium? Are they talking the Lane property? Are they talking Payson Road?
It's strictly, the venue in this case would be all the town properties.
All the
So,
town properties?
because they would have to execute a separate agreement with Gillette Stadium.
So in this venue, in this agreement, it says we are to provide on-site parking. Venue shall ensure there are designated parking areas. So where is the
And
parking
and
gonna
the parking
be?
is at Mason Road, if you can see, if
For-
you look at the map on your.
For all of the participants?
No, not for all of them. It's actually, the other idea would be to have some of the participants park at Gillette Stadium as well. So there's gonna be, there'll be several parking areas. The majority of parking we anticipate would be at Gillette Stadium.
So that's the beginning and the end anyway.
Correct.
Is that where the village would be?
Right. So, I guess what's important to note here is that if Gillette Stadium decides they don't want to do this, it's not likely we're going to be able to do this at the whole event. So they have not confirmed their position on it yet. They're studying it, they're evaluating just like we are, and they're waiting to make their final decision on it.
Okay, because it also states there would be, and I was at the meeting last night, and I know there's no spectators at all at the Lane property, but it states in here that they're allowed to sell alcohol, food, all that merchandise at the venue, so is all that gonna take place at Payson Road?
Well, they're allowed to, but the question is, anything would have to be occurred with a license and a permit to
And
do
there
so.
won't be any sales on town property.
Right.
They always do that at the Mutter Village, they call it, which will
Right.
be at the start and the finish. So they don't do anything along the route, so there won't be anything on town property.
So there's really no need for them to even have parking at any of the town two venues?
Well, I think they might need the parking in the town venues for maybe staffing or volunteers, things of that nature.
Or spectators, because
Yeah, spectators.
eliminating spectators from the Lane property and having the kind of obstacles that they will have at the Lane property, which are not the kind of obstacles most spectators want to watch. If they have the difficult team wall and some of those things on the Payson Road property, then spectators may go park there because it's closer to the action that they want to see.
And then one other question on this agreement with the insurance for the venue. Is the town covered for all of that?
Right, but they actually have to provide the coverage for us as well.
Says here, venue shall, at its own cost and expense, obtain insurance coverage for the event at the following amounts. It says here in this agreement that the venue should,
Well, the town is already covered as it is, but they would have to provide their own coverage in addition to that. Then we'd be named additionally insured on their property, on their event.
all right, so going back to the three different venues, so the stadium hasn't decided one way or the other if they're in or they're not?
They have not formally approved yet, that we know of. It would make sense, too, that if the town can't do this, I don't imagine that they would, I can't imagine that they would want to approve it if the town can't do it either. So, since we have the largest amount of track in terms of the actual course itself, it wouldn't make sense for them to approve it unless the track itself and the course could be approved. So I understand that.
It says also that the venue, meaning the town, has to provide barricades and bicycle racks and all that. We don't have those.
We do have
Is that-
barricades, so we don't have any bicycle racks, though. They would have to,
So-
we would have to negotiate that. Those are terms we could have to provide for them if they negotiate with them on that. So all I'm asking the board to do is, these are the terms as we see them right now. We will still have to put together a list of things that we still want to negotiate with them on to finalize the agreement. So,
I don't know what
Yeah.
that language referred to, Jenny, either, because
Yeah.
we didn't have any, we
wasn't
didn't have
any.
any bike racks at all.
Yeah, I think it's on page 3.
I think we do have bike racks in some locations, but that's very limited.
It's like, floodlights, if you get floodlights, we can use your floodlights, barricades, internet service.
Maybe
you know.
just a standard. I
Yeah,
didn't see
this
one
sounds like-
bicycle on the whole.
What this sounds like is a
standard
standard contract that actually things would apply to, like, the stadium, that kind of thing. This is,
Mhm. Yeah.
I don't think it really applies to our situation in many ways, you know.
We can, but those are issues we can resolve. I mean,
Yeah.
I've been working with town council to try and finalize an agreement, but certainly if there are things in here that cause angst to any member of the board, I'd want to know that, so I can address those points.
But I think my biggest concern is I mean, okay, Recreation Department, you've made your concerns known. You can't use the fields, blah, 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 all that stuff. Okay, you're covered, okay?
We've asked for a seat at the table, we've made our.
Right,
we've
and
made our-
your fields won't be damaged, so that in the fall, when soccer or lacrosse or
Right.
whenever they're,
What we've
they'll
looked
be
at,
okay.
yeah, It's gonna be the berms and
Yeah.
the outside
Okay.
areas, so we're comfortable with
okay,
that.
so you're all set.
Mhm.
I think my concern is the Lane property,
Mhm.
and I imagine you would be going, to enter the Lane property, you'd be going down the little road there, what's,
Mhm. Well,
no, but from the stadium,
Access road?
the access road, yeah. Putnam
that is
Way?
Putnam Way into La Prelate.
Yeah, okay. So then you would be going into the Lane property, and that's pretty narrow, that's a pretty narrow entrance. And, I mean,
But
we
not
were
all
just up
10,000
there.
people are going to go through it at the
No,
same
I
time.
know, but
That's why I asked the
even,
question earlier.
but even if you get 100 people or 50 people going at the same time, there's still a lot of people who don't realize how, I don't want to use the word sacred, but a few months ago, we just dedicated that area as a very sensitive, passive recreation area. And that's my concern. These guys are going to be coming like gangbusters.
But not over the area that's just been improved. That's the key. So I think.
Well, that's what's the entrance into the Lane property?
The area that they would traverse would be the area that's going to be paved. I think coming up probably within the next few weeks, that's going to get paved, finished paved.
So where's that?
That's on La Prelate Road. So they would go that, and then up through the trail that would go back into the back area towards the dam and the backlands, the back fields.
So they're not,
That's a dirt road that already exists.
that's the one like with this part, and you go up this way?
Yeah, that's right.
So you'd be avoiding those fields, those grass fields?
Well, you go eventually.
Near where the
You'd enter
picnic
in
tables are?
in the end. As part of the course, you would actually
Excuse
traverse those areas, but your entrance into the property would be on that existing dirt road.
Which will be paved at that time?
Up to the new.
Yeah,
education center.
whatever's paved now will
Existing.
stay paved, whatever's not paved won't be paved.
Right.
But when I actually walked it with a representative of Tough Mudder with Recreation and Conservation, and they had no desire to enter any of those areas that we just developed where the
Right.
sitting areas are. That was of no interest to them. So it would be going up La Prelate, maybe taking a right where the parking lot is, it's all the reclaimed asphalt, or going straight, but bypass the areas that we just worked on. So.
Okay.
If Doc has a question.
Could we station volunteers and throughout the Lane property
Oh, sure.
during the event to make sure people don't take wrong turns or step in areas we don't want them to step in?
Part of the process is that they have several volunteers that work in conjunction with the entire event. They wear T-shirts or whatever the case may be that identify, similar to Pan Mass,
Yeah.
where they have people stationed along the way to help guide people through so they don't get lost, or to keep people off of sensitive areas.
And they do use, my experience is they use snow fencing and other techniques to
Mm-hmm.
corral people. If there's areas where you're really worried about having to corral people, they'll make that clear with the erection of snow fence, for example.
Yeah. And going back to the 10,000 people, I know it scares some people when you say 10,000 people are gonna go through, but there are sections where like when we went, you have a number, you have a band, you check in at a certain time, and I don't know if they're paid or volunteers, but between the fencing and the people, a lot of times we were only shoulder to shoulder 2 people, maybe 3. When it's almost like a jog in between the stations.
Mm-hmm.
So it was never 10 people wide just going through. It was pretty. I was
Pretty limited.
surprised it was pretty
Yeah.
controlled.
I found that to be true because I did the Pan Mass Challenge 4 times, and it's rare that you run along that route where you're with a bunch of riders. It was always pretty strung out once it starts. The only the beginning was the most difficult part when people start that race, but it's actually different in this case because it's actually timed out.
Mhm.
So it's a much different type of approach.
Another question, if I may. Jim, if I could put you on the spot for a quick sec, you obviously ran one. What were your thoughts? Did the one up in Vermont?
Yeah, we did up in Vermont. As my group did it for 2 years. I just did it it was third week of June. It was, you run a couple miles. First you get there, they are disciplined about checking you in, and it's all online and everything. So when you go, they give you the pep talk, lay out all the rules about helping each other. And then certain groups go at a certain time. And then after, a lot of people that I ran with, half of them had run before, half of them didn't. So within the first mile, the people that have never run it before were out of shape, kind of trail to the back, and the people that ran it before. So it naturally, you just get a line, because not everyone's equal on their abilities. So you kind of run unobstructed for a mile or two, then you come up to an event. And as Chief had said, some of the events are, you go under a plastic pipe and then come out the other side, so it's 1, 1, 1, 1. No lines. You go another couple miles, and it might be an event where it's a group event where you can't get to the top unless you do a human pyramid or something. So then that takes a little bit longer. Some events had no spectators, other ones had spectators, but it was very well run. When I ran it, it actually rained at like 3 in the morning, downpoured, so there was a lot of mud. The year before, there was no mud, but it was made just at those events. Where we ran it, it was along steep ski trails or narrow ones that went around. And I think it was probably the 5th year that they've done it.
It was actually, they've held it there at Mount Snow 8 years.
8 years, yeah.
And they've had 9 events there.
Yeah, and I think they use pretty much the same trails, the same, because the people that I went with that had done it the year before said, oh, the next one's coming up, so they knew exactly where it was. But there was no erosion, there was no, mud all over the place. It was pleasantly, muddy just in the areas that you wanted it. And then when you finish it, it's all controlled at the beginning and the end, so they check your numbers and they give you, bands and stuff like that, and you can buy T-shirts.
You get a headband saying that you finished it.
Yeah, yeah. But but there was, there were golf carts that went around. If someone was injured, there was a medic there pretty quickly. The communication was good. So it was a good experience to go through. So.
Do we have to provide the medical and the?
If any event, anything that requires medical or police time, they actually cover those costs. So they pay us. They would reimburse us for those costs.
But it would be our people. They don't hire ambulance.
Medical director, unless things have changed, they have a national medical director that works with typically the fire chief and with physicians at area hospitals to put a medical tent together. So they have a medical tent. In our case, was staffed by volunteer physicians from Maine Medical Center, along with our fire and EMS personnel.
Mm-hmm.
And they paid for our fire and EMS personnel. The doctors volunteered their time, and the national medical director for the organization oversaw the medical tent.
We've had a lot of questions here tonight. My question is, why is Chief Baker answering the questions? Why isn't someone from Tough Mudder here?
There's no particular reason for that. It's just the fact that we know that he's had experience with dealing with it in his previous role. We've talked to them throughout the past several weeks. They're actually located in New York, so for them to come out is not a big deal. But they actually, one of the persons he's from this region area. He grew up in this area, but he works in New York. So I thought we could answer the questions. There wasn't a real reason to bring anybody out unless the board wanted me to do so. But
We actually spent the day with Mr. Frank Wheatley from the Tough Mudder organization, Wheatley and Recreation. We took the walk as well, so he is, to my knowledge, available and
Right.
able to answer the questions. But I understand what you're saying. We just have the opportunity to meet Mr. Wheatley.
Mm-hmm.
And Kate has talked with them directly as well from their organization. So.
And I'm happy to tell you about my discussions, which answer some of the questions that have been raised already.
I could say Jane met with
Frank Wheatley, yeah.
I think you did a brief walk and GPS the area just to get an idea what is it, which led to more questions. And then he actually came to a conservation meeting 4 weeks ago to explain what they did, what they can do, what the restoration is, which led up to last night's meeting, which we had more questions, concerns. So they did the small presentation.
Just for the record, I'd rather be here talking about crime and punishment, but I happen to have the experience and got asked, so I was trying to be a good soldier and answer the questions, but I'm happy to retreat to the back of the room. And thank you very much for having me.
Kate?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Board of Selectmen. I reviewed the venue agreement, had conversation with Mr. Wheaton from Tough Mudder and Bill. Yeah, and he's the one that's from this area. I had about 12 comments on the initial agreement. Some of the things that are of concern to the town were already addressed, like restoration, and they've got a provision that says the property will be restored to pre-event condition. They also already had a provision that said the Conservation Commission would determine the exact layout of the design, and we talked about that further last night. The commission would have to look at any sensitive areas on the property and specifically restrict them. So not only would we have the snow fencing, there'd be a plan that all the volunteers and workers would know what the areas are that are either wetland resource areas or vernal pools or other sensitive areas where there are things the commission has the obligation to protect. So that's in the agreement. There were a few other things. Oh, insurance was one of the things that was raised. They have a general liability, or the town has a general liability policy that would cover you, but they also have an additional, it's section 12.4 of the venue agreement, that they would add you as an additional insured on their policy. Section 5.1 talks about course design. Section 6.3D, if you want to look at the agreement. Do you all have copies of the agreement? Okay.
Yep.
In addition to that, I looked at, because a lot of the, first of all, the Conservation Commission had questions, so I looked at the deed restriction to the Lane property, and later, or last night, there were questions that were raised about the deed restriction with respect to the property. The two concerns mainly were vehicles being parked on the property and other damage just from the number of people on the property. The definitions of passive recreation and active recreation have been addressed in statutes and in case law, meaning court decisions. Basically, the difference is structures. Passive recreation is defined in various environmental statutes, and there actually is an opinion of the Attorney General from 1972. That the citation is 45 OPS, Attorney General 1972 to 1973, that says if you build a structure on a conservation property, such as a swimming pool, a tennis court, or bleachers for a field or stadium, then it should be changed through the legislature to be recreation land rather than conservation. But skiing, walking, hiking, in parking lots, in order to allow people to access properties to do things like that, are considered passive recreation. Even if it's lots of people running through, even if there is some temporary damage, that's passive recreation. So the concerns from the deed restriction about this being active recreation, I think, is addressed by the fact that Tough Mudder has told us they're not putting any structures on this property. And one of the types of structures, and I can't speak to all of the obstacles, I don't know what types of things they're going to do, I have not done one. But one of the things that came up last night that one of the Conservation Commission members, who happens to be a forester, said is a typical Tough Mudder event would be a pile of logs, and she considers that healthy for a forest and not something, or for a field, and not something that's going to cause damage. The other part of the deed restriction that was at issue that was of great concern, I think we've already addressed, but I'll just add my 2 cents, is the parking of vehicles or the driving of vehicles on the property. They're only going to park maybe a few vehicles along that one road. There are no spectators, and Gillette Stadium is where it starts and ends, so that's where people are going to park who are participating in the event. And the deed restriction, it doesn't prohibit parking or vehicular access on the property at all. It just limits the areas where where they're allowed to be and for certain amounts of time. So I think that's been addressed, provided Tough Mudder sticks to what they've said they're going to. And then my final point is just that some of the additional things, like Selectman Coppola raised, such as the barricades and bicycles, we can certainly take out, and I think they would be amenable to further changes to the venue agreement, because as I said, they've already made changes that we've recommended to it. So,
They also had a provision that they would, and can't remember whether it said you had to provide a structure or like trailers or something for them to store equipment from 1 year to the next. Now, this is a 5-year agreement. Where are those gonna go? And they have to be secure. We are responsible for making them secure. So I imagine if you have you have the obstacles and they're built and they can use that materials over for the next year or the next 5 years, whatever. They're not gonna throw that stuff away, they're gonna store it. And it's right in here that says we're responsible to provide a location or is it for storage. Okay, my question is, where is that gonna go?
I thought it was just a 1-year agreement.
Yeah, just it's a 1 year, this is a 1 year.
yeah, it's 1 year,
agreement.
so they won't have to be storing
Yeah.
things
Yeah,
from year
but
to year.
if after this 1 year, people
if
say,
they-
oh, this was great, let's do it again.
So the answer to that was
Then
that
it's
that
gonna
was
be
something
2
we'd
years.
have to figure out at that point,
And-
because I don't know the answer to that at this point. Right? But I think, there are a couple answers to that question. One would be if we work with our partners at Gillette on that case, because there's areas in the back where they can actually store things that they store throughout the year for their events. So perhaps we could use that. That's maybe one answer. There's maybe areas that we could store on some of our properties that wouldn't be obtrusive to anything. So I don't know the answer to that at this
Yeah.
point, but
But I mean, that's
if it came up
something
to that,
to
if
think
that
about.
happens, we'd have to address that.
Any other questions from the board?
Nope.
All right, thanks, Kate.
Thank you.
Before I let members of the Erickson Lane family, I just want to read a letter from Attorney Jeff Lovely. I want to read it into the record. This was addressed to Foxborough Conservation Commission. Dear Sir, Madams, I represent Clifford Allen and Edie Erickson, heirs of the Lane family, which conveyed the Lane property to the Town of Foxborough Conservation Commission in 1988. That conveyance was subject to multiple conservation covenants and restrictions, the clear intent of which was to limit future uses of the site to passive recreation and the enjoyment of nature. Despite those detailed restrictions, my clients have recently learned of a proposal to host part of a Tough Mudder event on the Lane property. This type of event involves participants navigating various obstacles, walls, and mud pits. Such an event will violate the terms of the restrictions and damage the property. Accordingly, my clients oppose the concept of locating the course or any part of the course for this event on the Lane property as it violates the terms of the conservation covenants and restrictions. In particular, the erection of new structures, with the exception of certain structures detailed in the restrictions, including, for example, a nature center, is expressly prohibited by the restriction. If you refer to the Tough Mudder website and media, you will see that the courses created for these events consist primarily of various substantial above-ground structures, climbing apparatus, walls, pools, mud pits, and the like, that are clearly structures and therefore cannot be constructed on the Lane property. Similarly, the use of vehicles and equipment necessary to erect and remove the structures is clearly prohibited by the restrictions as well. The entry fee for Tough Mudder events appears to be between $100 and $150 per participant. It would appear that much of this cost is for the permitting, erection, and removal of the multiple structures built for each event. Please note my client's firm opposition to this proposal. Unfortunately, due to the short notice period and time of year, many members of the Lane family are traveling or otherwise unavailable to advance their concerns at tonight's hearing. Accordingly, we insist that you deny the proposal. Thank you. Very truly yours, Jeffrey M. Lovely. So I just wanted to read that into the record, and I'll open up to any members of the Erickson Lane family that have any questions or comments or anything to add.
I'm not a Lane descendant, a relative, or anything like that, but I will say, Annette Little.
Can you come up to,
Sure.
can you come up to the microphone,
I
please?
just got it talking. 163 South Street. First of all, the idea of 8,000 to 10,000 people running in Foxborough and the amount of volume that we're gonna have is scary and has to deal with. Going to the Lane property, running on passive recreational forest is absurd. It's a sacred place and should be preserved. I know that we have to support the economy,
Patriot Place, the football games, we support and promote a lot. What is our payola from having it as a town? Do we get $2 a ticket? Do we make any money on it? Gillette's smart. They say, hey, we'll negotiate afterwards. They're gonna make money on it. We put up with everything. We get nothing. Why are we doing this? I don't want it. My son, I've watched my son participate in marathons and triathlons. When those people are running, they're scary. And I can remember my son getting hit by a car on a biking thing because they were in the street. These are tough. And, oh God, swimming in the lake, you're gonna drown because they'll knock you over. This is not an activity that I wanna see. This is not something that Foxborough needs to do. We get no money from it. We get harassment. Why are we doing this? Any answers?
Well, well, I think there is an economic impact to the community.
Patriot Place, they provide a lot of economic impact.
Well, so do other businesses
Yeah,
in
but
town.
this run for 8,000 to 10,000 people, we get nothing from it.
But it's actually not true, ma'am. All right,
What is it?
and the reason, it's a ripple effect in terms of the economy. So everybody that stays in a hotel actually pays a tax to the town. It goes back to the town. Everybody who buys a meal here is a tax that comes back to the town. Everybody who has a drink, an alcohol drink, is a tax that comes back to the town. So there's a significant economic
How much
impact.
do you think that amounts to, 5,000?
No, it's significantly higher than that, ma'am.
Yeah.
It's, I can tell you that.
I feel,
It's significantly higher.
I feel as a citizen,
Significantly higher.
I'm sorry to interrupt you,
That's
I
okay.
apologize. Okay, but as a citizen, I have to I deal with Patriot Place, you get lots of money from it. Enough. I don't want any more money by running a race. And it's all kind of ancillary. Let them go someplace else. We don't need them. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have races that come through our town with 10,000 people coming through the streets.
Harvard Pilgrim one does.
The finish at the 50.
Yeah, that's right. And there's also, if you want to see the economic impact of that, you can actually go on the website and they actually describe it. It's significant dollars to the regional economies that it affects. And I can tell you, based on the chief experienced up in Maine, it was a regional economic impact, not just limited to just Foxborough, but for the entire region. Because the number of hotel spaces that are needed are not just going to be limited to Foxborough, but just to the entire area, because obviously there's a lot of rooms that would have to be needed for that.
Thank you.
My name is Daniel Lane. I'm the son of Calvin Lane, the grandson of Edith and Clifford Lane. I live at 3310 Town Hill Road, East Montpelier, Vermont. And I'm down here to talk to you about this tonight because this race is a horrible idea for the Lane property. This is not the intent that the deed was set up to work with. It has potential to irreparably harm the landscape. All tonight, I've heard people talk time again, the town manager, the police chief, talk about how, it'll be set up so that any damages will be repaired. How do you repair 100 years of preserved land, the damage on 100 years of preserved land, with a bulldozer or whatever else they might use? You don't. All right? The plants, the animals, everything else is going to suffer. I happen to live in Vermont. Mount Stowe is in my backyard. Stowe is a resort that is set up to run these types of events all the time. They have trails, they have machines running over them throughout the year, summer, winter, fall, and spring. The only time they don't run machines is during mud season. Because in mud season, that's when the land gets damaged the most. And if you talk to the Vermont Trail Association, you talk to the people who run the Long Trail, they ban hikers from walking trails during mud season because of the intense ecological damage that happens when even a few people walk along a trail. You can't walk your dog, let alone this idea of 10,000 people running across the Lane Homestead property. You know, what if it rains for a week before this happens, or the day of, or the day before? That damage from water and mud is going to be magnified tenfold. You can't repair that. You can't. I don't have anything against Tough Mudder competitions at all, really. But on the Lane Homestead property, that should not happen. It's not what my father and his siblings intended when they signed the deed. Have you all read the deed? Have you read the restrictions in the deed? Have you studied those restrictions?
Not studied them.
You should, but you don't really have to, because they're crystal clear. They were written that way to be crystal clear. The restrictions are reasonable, they're clear, and they're enforceable. There's not a lot of room for interpretation of deciding, well, you know, let's do this, let's do that in the land, let's build a structure here, build a structure there, and then just take it away. The deed restricts that because there are exceptions to the restrictions that are in place. And those exceptions are highly, highly, highly detailed. You read through the deed and you'll see this. For instance, docks are to be limited to 20 feet by 5 feet, and you can only have 3 of them. Or a picnic pavilion, if you want to build one, it can only hold 1 picnic table. Now, before I came here today, I took the opportunity to walk the property, saw many of my favorite places, but I have to say, when I first got out of the car, I was greeted with a great irony. There's a sign, and by the way, the work that the Conservation Commission did on building the new park right at the entrance to the property is absolutely gorgeous. It's the right intended use of the property, where you have places for passive recreation, you have a deck, you have picnic tables, you have trails, but the sign read, "To the residents of Foxborough, this is your land. Enjoy. Do not destroy." And I thought to myself, this is crazy. I'm coming before the Board of Selectmen tonight to talk, a board that my grandfather sat on, and I have to defend the Lane Homestead property from being destroyed through pure greed. There's no reason for this to happen. There really isn't. Run the course elsewhere. Don't run it on the Lane Homestead property. You're destroying this for future generations. You really are. And you're dishonoring and you're breaking the agreement that was made between the Lane family and the Board of Conservation, the Conservation Commission in 1988. Read that deed carefully. It spells out that the trails that are intended, there's one exercise trail that is intended to be limited to the 500 feet on the northern side of the property. And then there's also part of a restriction that says there are unrestricted foot trails. The intention there is that people will, if they're going to run on the property, it's going to be limited to one space. It's not carte blanche to run through the property as you see fit. Doesn't matter if you put up snow fence, people are going to run anywhere. They're going to destroy it. They really are. And it goes against the deed. It really does. I urge you to read that deed carefully, read those restrictions, read the exceptions, and again, the deed is crystal clear, the restrictions are reasonable, and the deed restrictions are enforceable, either in the courts or in the court of public opinion. So please, as you know from my letter and from my sister's letter, please vote against this tonight and do not allow this to happen on the Lane Homestead property. I'm happy to take any questions.
Questions?
Yeah, I read the letters.
Yep. No, we're all in receipt of letters.
That letter from, I was at the Conservation Commission, as a number of us were last night. Was that a letter that Jeff Lovely wrote? Did it say cease and desist?
No.
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 What,
It was represented by Mr. Erickson, I believe, that it was a cease and desist letter. That's not the case. First of all, you can't issue a cease and desist against the town. It's not within anybody's authority to do that.
This letter that I read into the record is the same letter that
That was the exact
read
same
in
letter.
last,
Okay.
last night. Questions?
No questions?
No questions?
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
So Chairman, it's been stated a couple times already, and I just want to clarify this. There are no structures being built on the Lane property. I want to be crystal clear about that, because that's been stated in Mr. Lover's letter and by the previous speaker. There are no structures being built on the Lane property.
Yeah, I think
That's-
some
should
of
be
the, they've gone on the website and they see the
Right,
walls and the mud
exactly.
pits and, no, I get that.
Hi, Mr. Chairman, Board, Alan Erickson, speaking on behalf of 91 North Street, Edith Erickson, myself and my brother, Cliff Erickson, all descendants of the Lanes. Thanks for coming out in this balmy autumn evening. I'm going to read prepared remarks. I'm not planning on taking questions. My name is Alan Erickson, also speaking on behalf of Edith Erickson and Cliff Erickson, graduate of Foxborough High School, Eagle Scout of Troop 7 and descendant of the Lanes, and many other residents of Rock Hill Cemetery, stretching all the way back to the Comeys, one of the founding families in incorporation back in 1778. I'd like the record to reflect that I support the Tough Mudder happening in Foxborough. I support initiatives to get people outdoors, and I think it's great that the town promotes fun, engaging activities. I'm opposed to the Tough Mudder utilizing land that the town explicitly agreed would not be used for active recreation. That said, the town's rationale to pursue this event is weak at best, meaningless at worst. The economic impacts and benefits are entirely unclear. Foxborough has 16,693 residents. The other towns mentioned to promote the potential economic benefits have significantly smaller populations and significantly smaller catchment areas and are each resort destination towns for the event. Loudon, New Hampshire, population 5,317. Dover, Vermont, population 1,410. Stowe, Vermont, population 4,314. These are not comparable towns, and they are not reliable sources to extrapolate potential economic uplift from. It was noted at the Conservation Commission meeting last night that the F. Gilbert Hills State Forest would far and away be the most amazing venue for this type of run. The reason they haven't pursued it? Because it's complicated. If they can't put together a compelling case for the state, why is using Foxborough's public lands the easier target? Because Foxborough won't be as tough, won't ask as many questions? But these are the minor issues. A major issue is that among the Conservation Commission, there were lots of discussions on the environmental impact. And although the law may not require an impact study, the fact that the Conservation Commission would approve such an impactful event without having some experts complete an assessment of the potential effects could very nearly be approaching willful negligence. I hope you're seriously concerned about this. But there is a deeper, even bigger, real issue, and the real issue is trust. You, the Selectmen, the seats that you hold, and the body you represent are the ones who purchased the Lane land in 1988. You may in fact be different individuals, but you collectively, in effect, signed the deed in 1988 yourselves. After my great-grandmother died, I vividly recall sitting around the supper table listening to and participating in conversations regarding what to do with the land. The choice was not an easy one. Sell the land to the developers for twice as much money, or attempt to preserve the Foxborough that Clifford and Edith Lane loved, agrarian, woodsy, rural, but accessible, by taking less money and adhering to values, true, old-fashioned values. Some of the descendants and heirs voiced their concerns. What if the town decides to build on it? What if the town wants to put soccer fields on it? What if the town wants to ... So, as lawyers do, they crafted a document to address the concerns. And you, as the Board of Selectmen does, you agreed to those concerns. The basic premise, the intent of the document was that the land would remain materially unaltered for 50 years. Specific rights for specific vehicles to specific places. Limitations on structures. Not, quote, permanent structures, as I heard people saying last night, just structures. Various rights to enhance the passive recreation experience for 50 years. We, as descendants, accepted this. It was to give us time to grow away from the land and for the land to naturally grow away from us. You, the Board of Selectmen, the chairs you are sitting in now, 29 years ago, you understood those concerns, and you understood the benevolent monetary sacrifice the Lane estate was making. And you, the Board of Selectmen, agreed that the land would not be used in any manner, in any number of ways, for any number of purposes. And you were grateful to the Lanes for their generosity, and there was much rejoicing. 29 years later, you've been misled. Not only does this event not comply with the letter of the deed, which you agreed in 1988, it clearly doesn't comply with the spirit of generosity and sacrifice borne by my family when we agreed to let the town have the land below market value for nature conservancy. What we care about is that Foxborough honors its commitment to the people who were generous to it. Foxborough needs to honor its commitments to the people who helped make the town what it is. So really the issue is about the law and about trust. My non-legal summary of contract law is that it tends to focus on three things: the letter of the contract, the intent of the contract, and litigation to settle disputes. At this stage, you've done what any prudent party would. You've turned to your counsel for guidance. Your lawyer is wrong, ours are correct. The selectmen and the descendants of the Lane family are parties to a document with covenants that will, by definition, be breached by this type of event. Unequivocally, you will be breaking the letter of the contract. Beyond that, the intent of the document, the intent of both parties at creation, seeps through the deed to such an extent that the idea of an active sporting event being held on the land is so far removed from the understood intent that it need not have been specifically excluded. The letter of the contract is clear, the intent of the contract is clear. The decision before you will have grave consequences in three areas, and I offer three rhetorical questions for you to consider who you are as a board. 1, you are reneging on your promises as selectmen to the descendants of a town founding family. The question being, is this the type of leadership you want to be demonstrating? 2, you will chill the potential for other families to sell land to conservation. Imagine the next people talking, "Dear, when we pass, should we sell our Granite Street lands to conservation? Oh, of course not. Remember the 50 years the Lanes asked for? Yeah, they got 29 and the selectmen turned their backs on them. Let's build condos." The question being, how can Foxborough have a conservation program if it doesn't adhere to its end of the bargain when it acquires land? 3, your counsel is incorrect in their interpretation of the document. If you approve today, we will litigate. We have the ideology, time, wherewithal, and means to do so. The question being, is the unquantified economic benefit from the event worth sacrificing your reputations, as well as the energy and costs? It certainly is to the Lanes. For 25 years, you've upheld your side, 29 years, you've upheld your side of the bargain. We only have 21 to go. I ask you to please continue to honor your commitments. Your vote today isn't about having a running race in town. Your vote is a referendum on your belief in law and the rights and responsibilities of the board's ability to execute contracts in good faith, which thereby makes your vote a referendum on your character, your trustworthiness, your honor, your loyalty, and your willingness to adhere to a contract you signed in 1988, and the future of Foxborough conservation and quite literally the very nature of the town. Thank you for your understanding.
Okay.
I just have a question.
Sure.
It seems like the problem with this Tough Mudder proposal is the Lane property and the use of the Lane property. I mean, that to me is a big concern, because I've mentioned it to you earlier, I mentioned it before this letter was read. Does the Lane property have to be used in this proposal? Or, I mean, why do they have to go through the Lane property?
Well, if you look at it purely from a geographical perspective, it makes all the sense in the world to use it, because it's located adjacent to a place where they would start and end the race. It is. Are there other areas, perhaps? But it's difficult to say that, because If you went and, for instance, it was represented that the state forest was not considered. It was not considered for lots of good reasons because of the fact that it's a high use season for them during the summer months, and actually there's a lot of people that use that for picnicking and for other uses other than this particular use. So this is a case where this was the venue that made the most sense because of the fact that it actually coupled well with existing recreation land and town-owned land. So there wasn't another privately owned parcel that could be considered here. It was just the one that made the most sense. So you'd have to redesign the entire venue in order to achieve that at this point, and likely we would lose it. So I think the what's being suggested here, if we had to redesign it, it just wouldn't happen here over the next year.
But the thing is, they came to us. We didn't go to Tough Mudder and beg them to come to the town of Foxborough. I still don't know how Tough Mudder came to the town of Foxborough. But anyway, I don't remember having any discussions that, please, Tough Mudder, come to town of Foxborough because we need you. Didn't hear that at all. So, and the town is supposed to be signing a 5-year contract.
Not a 5-year contract.
Well,
it's a 1-year contract.
We're signing a contract. So why is it that it's all on their terms and not on our terms? I mean, the Tough Mudder concept is fine, but I do not think it's appropriate to use the Lane property because of the reasons that were mentioned here.
Well, I would just say that it's not entirely on their terms. I mean, they've accepted our requests for terms as we've laid out for them. So in order for it to happen here, we've given them the terms with respect to Recreation Commission and with respect to the Conservation Commission. So if they can't meet those terms, then certainly that would not happen.
Well, why can't we add another term and saying, I'm sorry, when you can't use the Lane property, but see if you can figure out something else on the, we have 110 acres. It's right in here, they have the use of 110 acres. Now, I don't know how much the Lane property is, but I'm sure it's not 105 acres. So if we are giving them access to 110 acres, I think we could probably look to change the course. I mean, it's not like we're begging them to come here. We're actually doing them a favor if they want to come. We're doing somebody a favor for them to come here.
There's no favor. It's just it actually helps.
Well,
it's an event for the region.
Fine.
So,
but it's not like the town is begging. And I would really like to maybe consider just carving out the Lane property and then then let them redo the course.
I will tell you, if that happens, then this event will happen in the next year. It just won't, because it's just not enough time. Because they need a year to plan as well as to market the site. So that would be if I propose that, I can tell you that it won't happen here the next year. Just only because of the planning that goes into that, Jenny, at this late stage.
Well,
I'm just that's the result.
Maybe they're creative.
I certainly can do that, but I don't think it will happen.
Because I think the Lane property is. I think that is the big sticking point on this. I know that's my concern. I mean, look what we did. Schneider Electric gave $100,000 for the upkeep and to develop the Lane property. It's a beautiful, wonderful place for the taxpayers of the town of Foxborough. The taxpayers own not only the Lane property, but they own the recreation too. And I think we're being very generous allowing them to use recreation land too. Remember, taxpayer money has developed that land. And you're going to be messing up that land too. But, not to the extent that I think it would be the same damages to the Lane property.
I mean, I think a lot has been said. There's been some emotional pleas made here tonight, some pretty strong emotional pleas made based upon hyperbole and conjecture. That it's all being suggested these things will happen, not necessarily being factually based. Yes.
Through the chair, I'd be curious to hear council's sort of like rebuttal to what there was a lot said just a few minutes ago, and I'd be curious to hear what your thoughts are through the chair.
Certainly. The deed restriction, and I'm not going to, I debated reading you the entire thing, but it is clear with respect to the many things that are allowed on the property, including structures being built. Never does it mention passive recreation, and I already said what the difference is between passive and active recreation is structures. So there's a whole list of things that are allowed on the property. There's even parking allowed. There are vehicles allowed. There are just limitations as to where on the specific property those things can be done. And there are, the previous speaker who was speaking against my interpretation of the restriction talked about boat docks. Yes, 3 boat docks are allowed, not more than 20 feet long. There are details like that. But nowhere in this does it say anything about recreation, active or passive. It just talks about the things that are restricted for only, another 21 more years. It is just a 50-year restriction. I just scanned through it quickly again to see if I thought there was anything that was
Rather than
prohibited.
going through all the deed restrictions, in your opinion, is this an allowable event on the Lane property?
As I said last night to the Conservation Commission, yes, provided and this is in the agreement already, provided the course is approved by the Conservation Commission to make sure that no environmentally sensitive areas are touched, provided they have snow fences, a map showing where people are allowed to go and not, and volunteers, making sure people don't trample over snow fences or go into the areas they're not supposed to. And there can be some very large areas where people are precluded from going. It's not going to be like my understanding of what Tough Mudder has told us. And again, it's qualified by, Concom gets to approve it, and Tough Mudder needs to have volunteers, and they can be town volunteers, on the property, making sure that they're implementing what they promised that they were going to do. So if those things are done, and if large areas are closed off and not used for the event, there won't be the fear that, oh, it's just a small area of a snow fence, people could easily accidentally run over that. Then it will be fine. There will not be damage to the property. I don't view this deed restriction as prohibiting what Tough Mudder has told us they're going to do. And again, I go back to the key point being, they're not building any structures. If they were telling us they were going to build structures, then I would agree. That makes it recreation, active recreation, not passive, and that's different. But that's not what they're planning to do as far as what they've told us.
I think what's also important has been lost in a lot of the discussion that's occurred so far. This is an event that's been going on for 5 years with over 200 different locations on some of the most sensitive areas in the country. If it was that bad, I can assure you, we would have all heard that. We would have all been told that. There would be websites out there saying, keep Tough Mudder away from you because they don't live up to what they say they do. That's the point I guess I'm trying to make here, is that we're basing a lot of comments that have been heard so far based upon what people think is going to happen, but not necessarily has happened. And I think that's where I'm coming from in this, is that I would not put my name in front of this. I would not be advocating for this in front of you if I thought it was going to cause any kind of irreparable harm to the land, which I think should remain open. Absolutely should remain open for forever, beyond the 50 years that these gentlemen have spoken about. Because I think it's a great green space for the town. That doesn't mean, by the way, that it should never be used for any purpose at all, other than just walking through. We're talking about a 2-day event, not a 365-day event. A 2-day event, which, by the way, which is with all kinds of guarantees built into it, that'll have to occur or it'll never happen again. So I guess that's where I'm coming from, is that at the end of the day, if the board does not feel comfortable with supporting this perspective, if they don't think that the event is a good enough event or something that really is valuable to the community, it offers another recreational opportunity this community has never seen. And I think it's something that a lot of people would find very useful, very enjoying. I think a lot of people that follow our Tough Mudder participants are actually good. They've never ever had issues with the people that participate in them. They're very rare that we run into problems with the people that participate in them. So they're not irresponsible people that do this. These are people that are highly competitive, people that really take good care of themselves personally, and want to do something that really is an achievement that a lot of people would never be able to do. So I ask you to consider those points, that if it was really truly that bad, it clearly would have been identified somewhere in the past 5 years as being a severely damaging type of event.
Again, through the chair, I guess, one more question, unfortunately, I have to bring up, and that's, now, with what was said earlier, the potential for litigation if we do go forward. Is that, obviously, that's a little bit of a concern to the town, because that could be costing us money now going forward.
I can only add that I did call Attorney Lovely this afternoon on my way here. I left a message because I didn't reach him, and I said in enough detail that I wanted to correct perhaps some misinformation that he might have as to whether there are going to be structures on the property, and I'm happy to discuss vehicles and anything else. But in my opinion, this is consistent with the deed restrictions terms. And I'm working with him on other matters. I'm sure we'll talk tomorrow or sometime this week about it.
Okay. Any other questions from the board?
Just, I look at it and don't disagree with what's been said to a certain point, but when I'm hearing statements and saying there's not going to be any questions on a 3-page statement, I do take exception to some of the stuff that was said. I think we were asked 3 or 4 times, have we read the deed, almost in a chastising way. I read the deed a year ago, I read the deed 6 months ago, I read the deed last night. For someone to say our attorney is wrong and then leave the table without questions. The town purchased this property 29 years ago for $1.5 million. There's certain rights that we do have on it, and there are certain restrictions that we have to adhere by. I don't think this would have gotten this far if it was blatantly against the deed. It went, I don't want to micromanage the Recreation Department, and I don't want to micromanage our Conservation Commission, but it went through a public hearing, and of stewards of the land from a conservation perspective, the stipulations that are on the approval is they will be treated like any other applicant. They're not waiving any notice of intent or ENF or environmental. They've required monitors. They've required somebody in the profession of a botanist or an environmental person to be there. Checks and balances, and they approved it. Recreation approved it on their own standards with appointed and elected officials. So to get the sense that we haven't even looked at the deed, or we're taking the easy road and doing it here because it's quicker than going to the state, it's a little offensive to listen to. I've spent time looking at it. I've walked the trails. I've looked at areas that I would cringe if we were going to allow a Tough Mudder next to going through water or wetlands. The fact is there's parking up there, there's paved roads up there, there were 2 houses up there, there are fields that are plowed with tractors. It's not an environmental oasis with vernal pools. It's upland that has been deeded with protections on it. But we purchased the land and we have rights to do within reason to use the property. There are fires up there, the scouts use it, there are camping, so it's not like we're going in pristine areas. It's sensitive, it's emotional, but I don't want the perception that we're just doing it because the monies are coming in through whatever avenues and hotels, and I think it's a good use of the property. It's a 1-year, let's see if it works. If it's a disaster, we all learn a lesson, and our names are on something that probably we'll think twice about next time. But just to say we can't do it because we're doing the wrong thing from our forefathers, it's a little offensive to hear that, and then a person just walk away, and the majority of the people not live here. So that's my 2 cents.
Before I ask for a motion, I'm just going to close with this. I don't appreciate the threat of litigation. Anybody can litigate anytime they want. It's not going to influence our decision. I don't appreciate the questioning of the competence of our town council, and I don't appreciate the questioning of our character based on whatever decision that we make. I think the town has been good stewards of the Lane property. I think Jim, who spearheaded, along with other members and volunteers, the improvements that have taken place on the Lane property speak for themselves and how the town views the property. And I think for the next 21 years and forever years after that, we'll continue to be good stewards of the property. The fact of the matter is, based on town council's opinions, the fact that it'll be overseen by the Conservation Commission, I have no issue with it. I understand the emotional connection with the Lane property, with the descendants, and I totally appreciate that. But we own the property now, and as long as we're not in violation of the deed restrictions, we can use it the way we see fit. And we're gonna use the property in a responsible manner. And I don't see any issue with going forward with this event. So with that, I'm gonna ask for a motion.
I'll move to approve the...
Hold on.
I just
Oh.
want to clarify, because I was not at the Conservation Commission meeting last night. The way I understand it, there's no structure, so none of the big structures, no spectators, no vehicle parking. What's left? Is it just the people running through a trail in one area and out the other, and that's it?
Right, there'll be 3 actual obstacles that they're pondering for this area, but they're one was based on hay bales that would be set up on the field, and one was a net that would have to crawl under, a net, not a barbed wire fence, but a net type of thing, structure. And the other one was on the area where the house was built. That may in fact be an excavation area, but it's an upland area. That's we're trying to actually improve that area for the
Because, I mean, should have brought that up earlier, and again, I wasn't at the meeting, but that's the area where the house was.
Right.
There's a shed or an old garage that
Really should be taken down.
should be taken down if it hasn't blown over at the last storm.
Right.
That area is completely developed with residential footprint.
Right.
That area is where one of the areas are, and then
Yes.
I'm assuming that through the conservation provisions, at the end of the day, it's gonna be a heck of a lot better than what it is
It's going to be an
now.
improved area, right.
I just, and I get the anxiety, and I get but I'm not hearing anything that is not being done up there already, but just a few more people on that trail. So, that's it.
Have a motion, please.
Move to approve the authorization for the town manager to execute the agreement with the Tough Mudder proposal.
Second.
Motion made, second. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay. There you go.
Thank you.
Minutes, if you want. Just so you have a receipt.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Selectmen's update. Yeah, let's go. I just want to say that, those that were able to make the Sharon Watson dedication, it was very well done.
Excuse me, we're still meeting here, so, thank you.
I thought Kevin did a really nice job in allowing people to say a few words. I thought that was very low-key and very, very Sharon-esque. So, and the pavilion looks great. And another example of
Community coming
of
together.
the town coming together, so.
It's a great, I seconded that, and I want to tell you that I think it's a structure that everybody should be proud of. It's a really well done. It was really reflective of Sharon and what Sharon was all about. She was clearly all about the community in so many different ways, and to do something that will stand for a long time and reflective of some of the work that she did there is truly a tribute to her and her family. And I think it was really well done today.
And I think the unique thing is her co-workers really spearheaded that effort.
They did. Yeah, absolutely true.
And that just shows you the type of person that she was. You got a lot of members of the community involved too, but it was really her co-workers that spearheaded that, so it was good to see. So, anybody else have anything for Selectmen's update? Nothing? Okay. Bill?
All right, thank you. wanted to, just a couple points that I wanted to raise tonight. Next week, we're gonna be meeting with the Financial Management Control Board in Boston relative to the train issue, to discuss whether or not the town will be successful in getting support for the pilot program. We'll be making a presentation before the FMCB next Monday. We don't know the exact time yet. That's still being determined. We think it'll be sometime in the morning. Could be as early, could be as late in the afternoon, depending upon how many people show up for public comment. I think it's important that if the community truly does support the train, that they should show their support by getting on the getting on the website. And I know that the Tri-County Chamber has put together a petition, electronic petition that people can sign. If people are interested in showing their support that way, they can go to www.tri-town-chamber, all one word, .org, and you can, and it's actually located right on the website, and you can actually show your support in that way. Yes.
If I might,
Sure.
Beryl was out for a quick second. Would
Sure.
you mind saying that again, so maybe we could get
Sure,
that same
sure.
thing in the paper?
So next week, and Barrett and I talked about this at the Financial Management Control Board is meeting to discuss the pilot program for the train in Foxborough. But if residents do feel very strongly and want to support the issue, they can go to the www.tri-town-chamber, all in one word, .org site, and they actually have an electronic petition people can sign and show their support for it. Just shifting gears for a second, with respect to the town hall, first of all, I can't say enough that people are truly excited about working in that environment. And everybody has been really appreciative of the building itself when they walk in and see it. It's just, we're getting a lot of positive comments from everyone, so I, again, want to say thanks to the community for supporting us in that. One thing that we are embarking on now is trying to get the Historic Commission involved along with our town historian Jack Arthurlet, to try and come up with an area of pictures that are truly reflective of the history of the town. And I spoke with Jack last week, and he immediately dove into the project with the Historic Commission to try and find pictures that are truly reminiscent of all the history that have gone on in this community for many, many years. And they were looking to try and come up with a collage of pictures that we can use particularly in the front foyer and along the hallways of the building, and perhaps even in the Selectmen's chambers. I've seen that done in other communities, and it's really well done. It's all the pictures will probably have the same kind of framing, so it'll be done very professionally, and we'll take the pictures and really give people something to talk about when they walk in the building, and we want that to be truly a tribute to the community and the history of the community. So I can tell you that Jack has embraced it wholeheartedly, and his commission was excited about the prospect of dealing with this. So that's something we're working on right now. I'll let Mary Beth take over from here, but those are some that we got a lot going on, but the more on the operational nature, so I won't belabor the discussion tonight, but I think I'll let Mary Beth go on with some of the things that she's working on.
Excuse me, Mary Beth, before,
Sure.
Just on your point, if I might.
Yeah.
Town hall, I don't know, but you guys, phenomenal feedback from a lot of people, patients come into my office talking about it. I have to say there's one negative part, those front doors. They're pretty heavy.
They are heavy.
And a couple of senior citizens that have come into my office said that they're really tough.
So we've got to get people used to the pressing the button that'll open the door for
It
them.
opens both sets of doors for
I
you.
thought it only opened one.
No, it actually opens both now.
No, it opens the first set and the second set.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
I think there was an instance where it was only opening one.
We
but
were together at the time.
Yeah, I think it does open both now. They fixed that. They
Rubbed you
removed
into
that.
the fixed door?
Okay,
so, but yeah, it's a point well taken. The doors are heavy, and that's why I encourage people to use the push button.
Okay.
To open the door.
Also, is there a late payment drop-off?
There is.
Window like they
It's
used
a
to be?
there's a box. It's like a mailbox built right into the wall. right to the right, when you walk in the front door, there's a mailbox slot, you can drop stuff in.
Oh, okay, to the right of the door.
To the right of the door,
Okay.
yeah. And the mailbox has been moved out front too, by the way.
Yeah.
When's the concierge gonna start?
That's
I
Mary
can
Beth's thing.
give you an
Sorry.
update on that.
I will just say that they're nearing completion of the mitigation piece of the building, and we're hoping to see that the building will come down sometime in the next few weeks. We don't know exactly, but, so I'll leave it at that.
So to that point with the town hall, people coming in and trying to find their way around, we have embraced the idea of having a greeter concierge as one of the senior tax work-off positions. So I've spent some time, created a job description, and this week I'm interviewing candidates for it. The excitement has been great. We have people who have, one person I spoke to today has been a resident for 50 years, has great, office skills and positive outlook, and we're looking to embrace having seniors. We're doing shifts from 8 to 12 and 12 to 4. Probably at this point, we'll use one senior for each shift. If we find that it's going to be a busy time, maybe we'll schedule 2. But we're going to line them up for as soon as it's safe. We have a parking lot. We also, if you noticed, have a wooden signboard on an easel until the electronic signboard gets installed. So my understanding is that'll all happen hopefully late August, early September. So talking to the seniors about starting right after Labor Day, and we'll probably do a little mini orientation for them all to get them all together and talk about some of that. We're updating a frequently asked questions, a little map that they can give out. So the candidates are giving me great ideas on what we should do and give out and train. So that's been a lot of fun this week, and I appreciate people's interest in it. I think there's been a good response. We're just really gangbusters with hiring updates and, replacing some of our positions. The police chief has extended an open offer for reserve officers, and they are coming in and working with our office, providing their credentials. I think we had like 150 applicants for reserve officer. We're working with them to get all their paperwork in. I think I mentioned we had 360 applicants for an assessor's position. We have that down to 4 candidates now. We're down to 4 candidates for the executive director of the regional dispatch center. We've extended offers this week on a DPW position, to a COA replacement position, a lateral police officer, and another COA position is coming down the pike. We're interviewing for maintenance supervisors and water techs. So it's been very, very busy in our office. We also started this week our bargaining process with the steelworkers. We've opened negotiations. We had our first bargaining session on Monday, went very well. We have 2 more dates in August. We have a date next week. We're starting with fire. Well, we started with fire. There's been a little interruption in the dates, so we're continuing along with fire, and we'll be working to set up some dates with the police. So our bargaining, one contract ended June 30th of 2017. The others both ended June 30th, 2017. Police were just getting ahead of the game. Theirs ends June 30th of 2018. So we're working hard on proposals, and for the most part, we're not using Labor Council either. Bill and I are doing it with Randy's help on finance, and then as we need it, Labor Council's reviewing our proposals, but not actually sitting at the table. Marcia and I had the opportunity to attend the Fox Cares meeting last week. It was a great event at Lafayette House. Marcia, I was very proud. She was the guest speaker with regard to legal, liquor licensing, permit restrictions. She even gave some good updates from our ABCC meeting regarding the law. So we had great feedback from that. And as a result of that meeting, we've made contact with the moderators, start talking about a special fall town meeting, because there are articles that will be coming up that will need attention in the fall. Some of them might be collective bargaining agreements. a state statute about alcohol, opening times, and planning and zoning have some articles as well. So,
I think there's another one you had mentioned to me as well.
yeah. So we reached out to the moderator to try to set something up. We were hoping for October. Looks like possibly it could be November date.
Or even early December.
Yeah, so we've got that ball rolling and we'll keep you updated. So I think that's it.
Okay. We'll pick
Did you
up
cover
on-
all the items for the?
No.
We still, okay.
Yes, we do. Move to approve Sunday early openings of 11 a.m. for Patriot home games for Jake and Joe's for 9/24, 10/1, 10/29, 11/26, 12/24, and 12/31. Dates may change due to flex scheduling.
Second.
Motion made, second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all's in favor?
Aye. Move to approve a gift donation in the amount of $50 to the Council on Aging for the Lockbox Program from Anonymous.
Second.
Motion made, second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all's in favor?
Aye. Move to accept a gift donation in the amount of $15 to the Council on Aging as a thank you for notary services from Patricia Fitzgerald.
Second.
Motion made, second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all's in favor?
Move to approve a gift donation in the amount of $170 to Recreation for the gift fund from Gardens to Grow.
Second.
Motion made, second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all's in favor?
Aye. Move to accept a gift donation in the amount of $675 to the Council on Aging for half of the art program from Mary June from the Friends, for the art program from May to June from the Friends of Foxborough Seniors.
Second.
Motion made, second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all's in favor?
Aye. Move to accept a gift donation in the amount of $775 to the Veteran Services for the Iraq and Afghanistan War Memorial from Ellen and Dave Feltman.
Second. Thank you.
Motion made, second on the discussion. I'm gonna recuse myself, even though I approve of it. All those in favor?
Aye.
And we thank you for the donation.
And was Ellen surprised when she found out?
Yeah. She's, I should
Watched
say
it live.
Let's
You
keep
did
moving.
what?
Next.
Move to accept a gift donation in the amount of $500 to Veteran Services for Veterans Transportation from the Foxborough VFW Post 2626.
Second.
Motion made, second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all's in favor?
Aye. Move to approve liquor license extension request of 11 a.m. to NPS LLC for New England Patriot Sunday home games.
Second.
Motion made, second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all's in favor?
Aye.
Move to approve the Board of Selectmen minutes of 7/11/17.
Second.
Motion made, second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all's in favor?
Aye. And move to approve the Board of Selectmen meeting minutes of 7/17/17.
Second.
Motion made, second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all's in favor?
Aye.
Move to adjourn.
Wait.
Oh, Para, I'm back, my bad, sorry.
Now, wait a minute, I called you back today, so you can't come back to me now.
Don't worry, I'll get you on another one. So I guess the question is, clarification about Tough Mudder. Is this going to be the first, would this be the first one in Massachusetts?
Yes.
So Massachusetts, period, because
Yes.
you also mentioned like the Boston, the Rhode Island, the Boston Providence corridor, but it's
Right.
also that
It's-
and in all of Massachusetts.
I don't know of anything about Rhode Island either, but I don't know there's one, I've never been to Rhode Island either, but this will be the
there's-
first in Massachusetts.
Some with an apartment in Rhode Island can confirm there's not a lot of open space, although there are
That's
some
right.
very nice
There's some nice areas along the ocean.
Oh, no, it's a gorgeous place. Other thing is that you say, I just make sure I heard correctly, it's in Mount Stowe, correct?
Yes, the Mount Snow.
Oh, Mount
Snow.
He
Mount
had
Snow.
said Stowe. but
He
I
mentioned
think-
Stowe, but it was Mount Snow was the most recent one.
So Mount Snow was the most recent
So
one.
there
There's
was-
a one in Mount Snow and also in Stowe, Vermont.
No, there's not one in Stowe that I'm aware of. There's one in Mount Snow and there's one in Loudon, New Hampshire. And the Mountain Loud, New Hampshire is going to occur in August of this year.
Okay, so Mount Snow.
I think it's interesting enough, they call it the Boston one, believe it or not, and it actually occurs in Loudon, New Hampshire. So hopefully they can maybe, and I don't want them to call this the Boston one either,
No.
by
We
the
call
way.
it Foxborough.
We get that enough with, already on Sundays.
Yeah, showing downtown.
That should be in the agreement.
That's right, exactly.
Excellent. Well, that's all I have.
Okay.
Thanks, Barry.
Thank you.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion made, second, any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Good night, everybody.